The rain hammered Manhattan like a judgment. Richard Bennett stood before his son's portrait at 3 a.m, the untouched whiskey glass in his hand. 729 days, 2 years searching. $73 million spent and nothing. Dylan's 4-year-old smile stared back at him, frozen in time, those brown eyes full of life that Richard hadn't seen since that cursed afternoon at Riverside Park. The phone call, 5 minutes of distraction. When he turned around, Dylan had vanished. "Sir?" Nathan Brooks appeared in the doorway, his military posture slightly sagged with exhaustion. "It's 3 a.m. You need sleep." "He would have turned 6 next week," Richard's voice cracked, "and I don't even know if my son is alive." The doorbell rang. Both men froze. Richard's penthouse had security that would make the White House jealous. No one got past the lobby without clearance, especially not at 3 a.m. Nathan was already checking the security cameras, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. His face went pale. "Sir, it's a child, a little girl. She's alone." Richard crossed the room in 3 strides. A girl, maybe 7 years old, stood at his door completely drenched, her clothes threadbare, her small frame shaking violently. He yanked the door open. The girl stumbled forward, gasping, Please, sir, you have to help me, they're coming." Richard dropped to his knees immediately, pulling off his jacket and wrapping it around her. "You're safe now. What's your name?" Lily Parker." Her teeth chattered hard. "I ran away. I had to run away to tell you." "Tell me what?" But then Lily's eyes landed on something beyond Richard's shoulder. She let out a strangled cry, running straight to the fireplace, to the portrait of Dylan. "That boy," she pointed with a trembling finger. "That boy. I know him. He lives with me." The world stopped spinning. What did you say?" "This boy. He's at the orphanage with me, at St. Catherine's. Everyone calls him Jake Miller. He doesn't remember anything, but I saw the bracelet." "What bracelet?" Richard grabbed her shoulders gently but urgently. "The ID bracelet. He hides it under his mattress. It has his real name engraved on it, Dylan Bennett. I saw it with my own eyes." Richard staggered backward. Nathan had to catch him. "Dylan, his Dylan, alive in an orphanage with amnesia. Where?" Richard knelt again, his hands shaking. "Where is this orphanage?" "In the Bronx, but sir—" Lily swallowed hard, fear flooding back into her eyes. "They're very bad people. If you just go there, they'll hide Dylan." A car door slammed outside. Lily jumped. "They followed me," she whispered. Nathan moved to the window. "Black SUV, 2 men getting out." Richard stood, his voice suddenly steel. "Nathan, don't call the police. Call Rebecca Morgan at the FBI now." He looked at Lily. This child had risked everything to come here. "Lily, you were incredibly brave coming here. But I need you to hide now." Nathan guided her quickly to his private office, a reinforced room. Richard moved to his door before they could knock. 2 men stood there. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The taller one smiled. "We're looking for a girl. She ran away from her group home. Group home at 3 a.m. in a storm, with no police escort." The elevator dinged again. Rebecca Morgan stepped out, her FBI badge already visible. "Gentlemen, I'm Special Agent Morgan, FBI. I'd love to hear more about this group home you mentioned." Richard watched it all unfold with a strange calm, because now he knew Dylan was alive, and whatever hell his son had been living in for 729 days was about to end. 48 hours had passed since Lily appeared at Richard's door, and his penthouse had transformed into a war room. Nathan had set up computer stations and covered every wall with maps and photographs. The coffee maker ran constantly. Rebecca Morgan sat across from Lily at the dining table, her voice soft despite the insomnia shadowing her eyes. "Lily, I need you to tell me everything about St. Catherine's, every detail you can remember." Lily nodded, her small hands wrapped around hot chocolate Nathan had made. "The building looks abandoned from outside, but inside it's nice, clean. They keep it nice for the visitors." "Visitors?" Rebecca leaned forward. "Rich people. They come at night. They look at us like we're puppies in a pet store window." Richard stood by the window, his shoulders tense. "How long have you been there, Lily?" Rebecca asked. 2 years. My mom brought me when I was 5. Said she'd come back. She never did. Director Foster kept me because I'm useful. I clean, cook, help with the younger kids. And Director Foster, what can you tell me about her? She's old but pretty. Blonde hair, red lipstick. She's nice to the kids she's going to sell, but to me and the other workers. Lily touched her arm where fading bruises lingered. Nathan pulled up files on his computer. Seat. Catherine's was shut down in 2013 for severe violations. The building was condemned. How is it still operating? Someone powerful is protecting it, Rebecca said. Richard finally turned from the window. Lily, tell me about Dylan, please. How is he? Lily's expression softened. Jake, Dylan, he's okay. Director Foster takes good care of the kids she sells. They have to look perfect. But he's quiet. So quiet. The drugs make him forget. Drugs. Richard's voice cracked. They give pills every morning, white pills that make you sleepy and fuzzy, but Dylan fights it somehow. He's kind to me when I cry at night. He hugs me, tells me stories about astronauts who fly away to better places. Richard pressed his palm against his chest, trying to hold his heart together. The bracelet, Nathan said. Where did he get it? He had it when he came. Director Foster tried to take it, but he hid it. Sometimes at night, he takes it out and stares at it, trying to remember. That's how I knew his real name. Lily. Richard knelt beside her chair. How many other children are there? 8 now, but there used to be more. They leave and never come back. I heard her on the phone once. She told someone a kid was worth $3 million. The room went silent. Nathan, Richard stood abruptly. I want full surveillance on St. Catherine's. We can't just storm in there, Rebecca interrupted. She'll relocate the children, destroy evidence. We don't just rescue Dylan. We rescue all of them. We dismantle the entire operation. How? Rebecca turned to Lily. What if we gave Margaret Foster exactly what she wants? A rich buyer so convincing that she'd expose her whole operation to make the sale. Understanding dawned on Richard's face. You want me to infiltrate? I want you to become someone willing to pay $3 million for a child without asking questions. Nathan nodded. We'd need to build a complete identity. It would take time. We have time, Rebecca said. Lily tugged on Richard's sleeve. Mr. Bennett, after you saved Dylan, will you still want me? Richard pulled her into a tight hug. Lily Parker, you're part of my family. Dylan's going to be lucky to have you as a sister. Lily burst into tears of hope. And somewhere in the Bronx, Dylan Bennett lay in bed, staring at a bracelet he didn't understand, trying to remember why the word astronaut made him feel both happy and sad. Sienna Liu arrived at Richard's penthouse at dawn. Carrying a leather case filled with tools of transformation, she was petite, barely 5 feet tall, with round, wire-frame glasses and a nervous habit of cracking her knuckles that drove some clients crazy. But she was the best dialect coach in the business, capable of turning American-born executives into believable British aristocrats in a matter of days. Mr. Bennett, she extended her hand, studying him with clinical precision. I understand we're creating Maxwell Sterling, British entrepreneur with mining interests in South Africa. Is that correct? That's correct. Richard's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly as he poured coffee. Sienna noticed. She noticed everything. Before we begin, I need to know, can you commit fully? An accent isn't just words. It's posture, breathing, the way you hold your jaw. One slip, one moment where Richard Bennett surfaces. And you're dead. The word hung in the air. Dead, not figuratively. I understand, Richard said. I hope you do. Sienna opened her case, revealing recording equipment, phonetic charts, and a thick dossier. Because I lost my nephew to traffickers 3 years ago, 8 years old, taken from a playground in San Francisco, never found. So when Rebecca called and told me what this was about, I said yes, immediately. But I need you to understand, if you're doing this, you're all in. No hesitation, no cracks. Richard met her eyes. They have my son. I'd walk through fire to get him back. Good. Sienna cracked her knuckles. Then let's turn you into someone else. The transformation began immediately. Nathan had already compiled everything they'd need: passport photos, property deeds, bank statements, social media history going back 15 years. Maxwell Sterling existed on paper, in digital footprints, in club memberships and business registries. He owned a flat in Kensington, had accounts in Zurich, and gave generously to conservative political causes. He was everything Richard Bennett wasn't: cold, entitled, willing to bend any rule to get what he wanted. "Your hair first," Sienna said, gesturing to the bathroom where a stylist named Marcus waited. Marcus was 60, openly gay, and had been styling hair for celebrities and criminals alike for 4 decades. He took one look at Richard's dark brown hair and nodded. "Darker blonde, I think. More. European old money, and we'll trim it shorter, neater, no American casual here." 2 hours later, Richard stared at a stranger in the mirror. His hair was now a dirty blonde, styled with a precision part. Contact lenses had turned his brown eyes blue. A carefully trimmed beard, more refined than the stubble he'd been wearing, completed the visual transformation. But the real work was in the voice. "Again," Sienna said patiently, as Richard practiced the sentence for the 20th time. "The R sound is softer. British English doesn't hit the R the way American does. Rather, not a rather." "Rather," Richard tried again. "Better again. Rather, good. Now full sentence. I'd rather not discuss my personal affairs with strangers." Richard repeated it, his jaw aching from holding the unfamiliar position. Sienna circled him like a sculptor examining a work in progress, adjusting his shoulders, his spine, even the way he held his hands. "British upper class don't gesture much when they talk. Economy of movement. You're a man used to others listening without needing emphasis." Lily watched from the doorway. Fascinated, she'd been given new clothes, jeans that fit, a soft sweater, shoes without holes. Nathan had taken her shopping online, letting her pick things out herself. She'd cried over a unicorn-themed backpack, unable to believe it was really hers. "He looks different," she whispered to Nathan. "That's the point," Nathan whispered back. His phone buzzed again. Zoe, sending a photo of the mysterious bracelet she'd found at school. It looked handmade, with the name engraved, Emma Rodriguez. Nathan's blood ran cold. He'd seen that name before on a missing persons database. He made a mental note to investigate later. Right now, his focus needed to be on Richard. Rebecca arrived mid-morning, looking exhausted but determined. She'd spent the night coordinating with her FBI contacts, building parallel investigations quietly, ensuring that when they moved against Seat, Catherine's, they'd have backup that couldn't be corrupted. "Progress?" she asked Sienna. "He's good, natural mimic. Give me 2 more days and I'll have him completely convincing." "We don't have 2 days," Rebecca pulled out her tablet. "I've been monitoring chatter from our surveillance on St. Catherine's. Margaret Foster is getting nervous about Lily's escape. She's planning to move 3 children to an Eastern European location within 72 hours. Richard's new blue eyes flashed with anger. "Then we move now." "No," Rebecca was firm. "You move now and you save maybe 1 or 2 kids before the whole operation scatters. We need her to believe Maxwell Sterling is legitimate. We need her comfortable enough to show us everything. Every location, every contact, every corrupt official. And if those 3 children disappear to Europe before we act, then we coordinate with Interpol and get them back." Rebecca's voice softened slightly. "I know this is hell, Richard, but we do it right, or we don't do it at all." Nathan pulled up a contact list. "Thomas Whitmore, attorney, Park Avenue offices, according to our informants. He's the middleman, connects clients with Margaret Foster, takes a 15% commission. Then Whitmore's our entry point." Richard's voice was steadier now, the accent creeping in naturally. "I'll call him this afternoon. Request a meeting." Sienna nodded approvingly. "Remember, Maxwell Sterling doesn't ask. He expects. You're not desperate. You're entitled. You want a child the way you'd want a luxury car. You can afford it. You deserve it. And you're mildly annoyed that you have to go through channels." The thought made Richard's stomach turn, but he nodded. The rest of the day was intensive training. Sienna drilled him on British cultural references, proper etiquette, even the way Maxwell Sterling would order coffee. Nathan built out financial evidence, wire transfers, property purchases, anything that would stand up to scrutiny. Rebecca worked her FBI contacts, including a hacker named Igor Volkov, a Russian genius with code tattoos running up both arms and an addiction to Red Bull. Igor could create digital histories that would fool the NSA. "Mr. Sterling," Igor said via video call, his accent thick, "you are now real, more real than real. Your bank accounts, they have 15 years of history. Your flat in London, it exists, with photographs on Instagram from various parties you attended. Your mining company, it has shareholders, board meetings, even small scandal about environmental protest in 2019. You are, as Americans say, legit." By late afternoon, Richard was exhausted but ready. He picked up his phone, a new, untraceable device, and dialed Thomas Whitmore's number. It rang twice before a smooth voice answered. "Whitmore and Associates." "Yes, good afternoon." Richard's British accent was flawless. "This is Maxwell Sterling. I was referred to Mr. Whitmore by a mutual associate regarding a rather delicate personal matter. I'd like to schedule a consultation at his earliest convenience. May I ask the nature of this matter, Mr. Sterling? I'd prefer to discuss details in person, but it involves private family arrangement. I understand Mr. Whitmore specializes in such things." There was a pause, keys clicking on a keyboard. Then, "Mr. Whitmore has an opening tomorrow at 2 p.m. Does that work for your schedule?" "Perfectly suitable. I'll be there." Richard hung up. The room was silent. "That was perfect," Sienna breathed. "Absolutely perfect." But Richard didn't feel perfect. He felt like he was walking toward a cliff edge, about to jump into darkness. Hoping there was water below instead of rocks, Lily approached him shyly. "Mr. Bennett, will you forget who you really are when you're being Maxwell?" Richard knelt down, his blue contact lenses strange, but his smile genuine. "Never, Lily. No matter what I look like or sound like, I'll always know who I am. I'm Dylan's father, and soon I'll be yours too. That's who I really am." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He stood at the window, watching the city lights, mentally rehearsing every detail of Maxwell Sterling's identity. Tomorrow, he'd walk into Whitmore's office. Tomorrow, he'd become someone capable of buying a child in the Bronx. Margaret Foster prepared for her weekly visit to one of her satellite locations, a similar operation in Boston, where 8 more children were held. Business was good, demand was high, and after Lily's unfortunate escape, it was time to tighten security. She made a call to Judge Marcus Cooper, one of her longest-standing protectors. "We need to discuss the Parker girl," she said, lighting a cigarette. "She knows too much. She's 7 years old. Who's going to believe her? Richard Bennett might if she somehow found him." There was a pause on the other end. "The Dylan Bennett father, the one who's been searching." "The same. We should have moved the boy months ago. He's been with us too long." "Then sell him. You have a buyer lined up. Working on it, Thomas has someone new, British money, mining fortune, meeting him tomorrow." In another part of the city, in a safe house guarded by 2 FBI agents, Lily drew pictures. She drew Dylan, Jake, smiling. She drew a house with a big yard. She drew 3 stick figures labeled Dad, Dylan, and me. Agent Marcos Dominguez watched her draw, his heart aching. He had 3 kids of his own. The thought of any of them going through what Lily had endured made him want to break something. "Pretty picture," he said gently. "It's my family," Lily explained. "My new family. The one I'm going to have when this is all over. It's a good family," Marcos agreed, and in the war room Rebecca Morgan stared at files, connecting dots, building cases. Tomorrow, Richard would walk into the lion's den. And if anything went wrong, if Maxwell Sterling's cover was blown for even a second, they'd lose everything. She sent a text to Richard. "Tomorrow changes everything. Stay in character. Trust your training." "We've got your back." Richard read it but didn't respond. He simply looked at Dylan's portrait one more time, memorizing every detail, storing it as armor against what he was about to become tomorrow. Richard Bennett would disappear, and Maxwell Sterling would be born. The law offices of Whitmore and Associates occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower on Park Avenue, all dark mahogany and expensive art. Maxwell Sterling, stepped out of the elevator wearing a bespoke Savile Row suit, Italian leather shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and a Patek Philippe watch that screamed old money. Nathan stood in a surveillance van 3 blocks away, monitoring through the button camera sewn into Richard's jacket. Rebecca was with him, along with 2 tech specialists recording every word. "Breathe," Nathan said into Richard's nearly invisible earpiece. "You're Maxwell Sterling. You own this room." The receptionist, a young woman with severe black hair and impressive posture, barely glanced up. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Whitmore is expecting you. 3rd door on the right." Maxwell Sterling didn't thank her. He simply nodded and walked through as if he owned the building. Thomas Whitmore's office was a study in calculated intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Leather furniture that probably cost 6 figures, and walls lined with photographs of Whitmore shaking hands with senators, judges, and CEOs. The man himself stood as Richard entered, 50 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, smile that belonged to a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. "Mr. Sterling." Whitmore extended his hand. The grip was firm, appraising. "A pleasure. I've heard quite a bit about your success in the mining sector." "Success is relative, Mr. Whitmore." Richard's British accent flowed naturally now. "I've accumulated wealth, certainly. What I lack is an heir, and nature has been uncooperative in that regard." Whitmore gestured to the leather chairs facing his desk. "Please sit. I understand completely. Many of my clients face similar dilemmas. Traditional adoption is bureaucratic, slow, invasive." Richard sat, crossing his legs with aristocratic ease. "I have no interest in social workers examining my life. No patience for endless interviews determining if I'm suitable for fatherhood. I am eminently suitable. I have resources. I can provide opportunities most children never dream of." Whitmore's smile widened. He recognized the language. Rich, arrogant, willing to circumvent any rule. "And if I told you there was an alternative, a more private arrangement, I'd say I'm listening." In the van, Rebecca leaned forward, her heart pounding. This was it, the confession that would start unraveling everything. Whitmore lowered his voice, though they were alone. "I work with an institution that manages children in special circumstances, children who can't be placed through traditional systems for various reasons. The director is exceptionally discreet. She facilitates private adoptions for qualified clients, qualified meaning, financially capable, and committed to absolute discretion." Whitmore steepled his fingers. "The process costs $3 million. All documentation is handled through private channels. The child receives a new birth certificate. New records. It's as if they'd always been yours." Richard forced himself to nod thoughtfully, as if considering a business investment. Inside, rage burned so hot he could barely see. $3 million for a child. Said so casually, as if discussing real estate. $3 million is manageable. Richard paused. "But I don't purchase anything sight unseen. I'd need to evaluate the merchandise personally." Merchandise. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. Whitmore's eyes glittered. "Naturally, I can arrange a visit for tomorrow evening. The director prefers nocturnal meetings, less exposure." "Perfect." Richard stood, extending his hand again. "I expect this partnership to be fruitful, Mr. Whitmore." As he walked back to the elevator, Richard could feel Whitmore's eyes on his back, assessing, calculating. In his ear, Nathan whispered, "Perfect, absolutely perfect. We got everything." But Richard felt sick. The elevator ride down was eternal, and the moment he stepped onto Park Avenue away from Whitmore's building, his legs nearly gave out. Nathan was there instantly, having abandoned the van. "Cars around the corner. Stay in character until we're clear." They made it 2 blocks before Richard had to stop, lean against a building, and fight the urge to vomit. I just negotiated to buy my own son. No! Nathan gripped his shoulder. You just got us inside the door. You got us the evidence we need to destroy these people. Rebecca was already coordinating with Igor. The conversation had been recorded, encrypted, and uploaded to secure FBI servers. Whitmore was finished. They had him on tape facilitating child trafficking back at the penthouse. Lily was waiting with Marcos. She'd spent the day drawing more pictures, trying to remember the layout of St. Catherine's with as much detail as possible. When Richard walked in, still looking like Maxwell Sterling with his blonde hair and blue eyes, she ran to him anyway. Did it work? Did he believe you? He believed me. Richard hugged her carefully, afraid his rage might leak through and scare her. Tomorrow night I'm going to the orphanage. Tomorrow night I'll see Dylan. Lily's face glowed with hope, but then worry clouded it. Mr. Bennett, what if Jake Dylan doesn't recognize you? What if he looks at you like a stranger? Richard had thought about nothing else for the past 12 hours. Then I'll just have to remember for both of us until his memories come back. That night, in the Bronx, Margaret Foster received a call from Whitmore. Maxwell Sterling, British mining fortune, wants a boy, age 5 to 7, light features, intelligent but docile. Whitmore sounded pleased. He didn't blink at the 3 million. Background check. Already done. Sterling's legitimate. Property in London, accounts in Switzerland, connections to conservative political circles. He's exactly our type of client. Margaret smiled, stubbing out her cigarette. Perfect. I have just the child, Jake Miller, been with us nearly 2 years, completely compliant, no problematic memories. Sterling will be delighted. One thing, Whitmore added. He's very British about wanting to inspect merchandise before purchase, insisted on seeing the boy personally. Of course, bring him tomorrow at 9 p.m. I'll have Jake prepared. After hanging up, Margaret called Linda Chen into her office. Our new client wants the Miller boy. Get him ready, bath, new clothes, and give him the calming medication. I want him perfect. Linda nodded, but something nagged at her. You sure about this Sterling guy coming out of nowhere? Whitmore vetted him thoroughly, and we've done this 42 times without issue. Why doubt now? Lily ran away 3 days ago. What if she found someone? What if she's a 7-year-old child who knows nothing but this building? Where would she go? Who would believe her? Margaret waved dismissively. Stop being paranoid and prepare the boy. But Judge Marcus Cooper was paranoid. He'd stayed alive in this game for a decade by being paranoid. He made a call to a private investigator on his payroll, a man named Derek Kane, who specialized in surveillance. I want everything on Maxwell Sterling. Where he's staying, who he talks to, where he goes, everything. That'll cost extra. I don't care, just get it done. In the penthouse war room, Nathan picked up Kane's digital footprint within an hour. We've got a tail private investigator, works for Cooper. Rebecca nodded. Expected, Igor. Can you feed him exactly what he wants to find? Already doing. Igor's fingers flew across his keyboard. Kane will find hotel reservations at the plaza, dinner at expensive restaurants, meetings with British expat community, all fabricated, all perfect. Richard stood at the window, staring at the Bronx skyline. Somewhere in that direction, Dylan was being bathed, dressed, prepared to be shown to a potential buyer, prepared to be evaluated like livestock. 24 hours, he said quietly. 24 hours and I'll see my son. And then the real work begins, Rebecca reminded him. Seeing Dylan is step 1. We need Margaret to feel safe enough to show us her entire operation. We need names, locations, every corrupt official on her payroll. I know. Richard turned from the window. I'll get it all, whatever it takes. Sienna arrived for a final coaching session, drilling Richard on British mannerisms until late into the night, when she finally left, satisfied with his performance. Richard tried to sleep. He couldn't. Instead, he sat with Lily, who also couldn't sleep. They played cards, go fish, in the kitchen at 3 a.m., both trying not to think about tomorrow. Mr. Bennett? Lily set down her cards. When you see Dylan, will you tell him I said hi? Tell him Lily says hang on just a little longer. I'll tell him. Richard's voice was thick. And Lily, thank you for everything, for being so brave, for saving my son. He saved me too, Lily said simply. When I was sad, he made me feel less alone. That's what families do, right? That's exactly what families do. In the Bronx, Dylan couldn't sleep either. Linda had given him the calming medication, pills that made everything soft and distant, but tonight they weren't working as well as usual. His mind felt clearer somehow. He pulled the bracelet from its hiding place under his mattress, running his fingers over the engraved name, Dylan Bennett. Dylan, he whispered to himself. My name is Dylan. Somewhere in his drugged, fractured mind, memories tried to surface. A man's voice reading about stars, a swing moving back and forth, the smell of coffee, laughter. Dylan, he repeated. I'm Dylan, and someone's looking for me. I know it. I feel it. In the bed across the room, Ethan Cooper, the 7-year-old son of the corrupt judge, heard him and whispered back, You okay, Jake? My name's not Jake, Dylan said with sudden certainty. It's Dylan, and tomorrow everything's going to change. He didn't know how he knew, but he did. Tomorrow his real father was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The seat, Catherine's building, loomed through the fog, like something from a Gothic nightmare. Richard stood on the sidewalk, staring at the condemned Victorian structure with its boarded windows and faded "Entry Forbidden" signs. Nathan had dropped him off 2 blocks away. Too close would seem suspicious. Remember, Rebecca's voice crackled in his earpiece, barely audible. You're evaluating a purchase. Stay cold. Stay detached. No matter what you see. Richard adjusted his Italian wool coat and approached the side door. The entrance Lily had described for nighttime visitors. Before he could knock, it opened. Linda Chen stood there, thin and sharp-featured, a cigarette burning between her yellow-stained fingers. Mr. Sterling, she looked him up and down. Right on time, Director Foster appreciates punctuality. The interior was a jarring contrast to the decrepit exterior. Clean hardwood floors, fresh paint, tasteful lighting. It looked like a private school dormitory, not the prison Lily had described. But Richard noticed the details. Reinforced locks on every door. Cameras in every corner, windows barred from the inside. Linda led him up a staircase, her heels clicking rhythmically. The smell of jasmine perfume grew stronger with each step. They reached a second-floor office where Margaret Foster waited, looking exactly as Lily had described. Platinum blonde, red lipstick, designer clothes that cost more than most people earned in a month. Mr. Sterling? She extended a manicured hand. What a pleasure. Please sit. Richard shook her hand, fighting the urge to break every finger. This woman had drugged his son, held him prisoner, planned to sell him like property. Instead, Maxwell Sterling smiled politely. Director Foster, Thomas Whitmore spoke highly of your discretion. I take pride in my work. Margaret gestured to a leather chair. I understand you're seeking a male child, ages 5 to 7, with specific characteristics. Correct, light features, European appearance, intelligent but tractable. Margaret opened a folder containing photographs. 5 boys, 5 missing children that Richard recognized from national databases he'd memorized over the past 2 years. Grace Anderson's brother, the Moretti twins' cousin. Children with families still searching, still hoping. Each of these boys meets your criteria, Margaret said smoothly. But I believe this one would be particularly suitable. She slid forward a photo. And Dylan, Richard's heart stopped, then exploded, then stopped again. His son stared out from the photograph, hair longer than Richard remembered, face slightly thinner, but unmistakably Dylan, those brown eyes that Sarah, Richard's late mother, had passed down through generations. The small scar above his left eyebrow from falling off a swing at age 3. Jake Miller, Margaret continued, 6 years old, been with us nearly 2 years. Exceptionally well-behaved, highly intelligent, wonderfully compliant, perfect for a father who values obedience. Jake Miller, they'd even taken his name. May I see him in person? Richard's voice remained steady. though inside he was screaming, "Of course I've prepared an observation room." Margaret led him down another hallway, Linda trailing behind like a shadow. They stopped at a door with a one-way mirror. Through it, Richard could see a comfortable sitting room with a sofa, toys, books, and Dylan. His son sat on the couch, hands folded in his lap, wearing khaki pants and a blue polo shirt that Richard would never have chosen. His posture was unnaturally straight, controlled. His eyes held a vacant quality that made Richard's blood run cold. "Jake," Margaret spoke into an intercom, "we have a visitor. Please come meet Mr. Sterling." Dylan stood and walked to the adjoining room with mechanical obedience. When the door opened and he saw Richard, there was no recognition, no spark, nothing. "Hello, sir." Dylan's voice was soft. Carefully modulated, rehearsed, Richard knelt to his son's level, hands trembling so badly he had to clench them into fists. "Hello, Jake. It's a pleasure to meet you." "The pleasure is mine, sir," Dylan responded like a trained robot. In the van 3 blocks away, Nathan whispered, "Oh God, what did they do to him?" Margaret smiled with satisfaction. "Jake is exceptionally polite. We ensure all our children have impeccable manners." "May I speak with him?" Richard asked. "Certainly. Feel free to ask anything." Richard looked at his son, really looked, cataloguing every detail. The way Dylan held his shoulders, the slight tremor in his hands that suggested the medication dosage was wearing off, the faint dark circles under his eyes from poor sleep. "Jake, do you enjoy reading?" Dylan hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Something flickered in his eyes. "Yes, sir." "What kind of books?" Another hesitation. I like stories about astronauts." The word hit Richard like a physical blow. Astronauts. Dylan's obsession before he disappeared. He'd had astronaut pajamas, astronaut toys, made Richard read every book about space they could find at the library. "Astronauts," Richard repeated carefully. "That's quite interesting, Jake." And then Dylan did something that shattered Richard completely. He reached out and touched Richard's leather ID bracelet, the one Richard wore every day, with his initials and date of birth engraved on it. Dylan's fingers traced the engraving with curious fascination. "I had a bracelet," Dylan whispered, "but they took it away." Margaret frowned. "Jake, don't make up stories." "Sorry, Director Foster." Dylan's hand dropped immediately, the vacant look returning to his eyes, but Richard had seen it. For 1 second his son had remembered. Through all the drugs, all the conditioning, some part of Dylan was still fighting. "He's perfect," Richard heard himself say. "I'd like to proceed with the acquisition." Margaret practically glowed. "Excellent. The paperwork will be ready in 48 hours. We'll prepare new birth certificate, passport, complete documentation. Jake will be ready to go home with you." Home, as if this nightmare building was home. "One question," Richard said carefully. "The documentation, it's produced by legitimate authorities." "Absolutely. I work with Judge Marcus Cooper in family court. He's been helpful for many years. Ensures everything is perfectly legal on paper." Margaret's confidence was absolute. "In fact, his own son came through my services 10 years ago, so he has personal investment in maintaining our arrangement in the van." Rebecca was already typing notes. "Judge Cooper, corrupt to the core, another name for the list. Perfect." Richard stood. "I'll transfer the payment tomorrow." As Richard was escorted out, he looked back one last time. Dylan was being led away by Linda. His small shoulders slumped, his steps slow, but just before he disappeared through the door, Dylan turned and looked directly at Richard. Their eyes met, and Richard saw it, a question forming in Dylan's drugged mind. A wondering, a recognition he couldn't quite grasp. "I know you," those eyes seemed to say, "don't I?" Then Linda pulled him away, and Dylan was gone. Richard made it to Nathan's car before collapsing. He pressed his face against the cool leather seat and sobbed. Great, wrenching sounds that came from somewhere deeper than his lungs. "He didn't recognize me." Richard gasped between sobs. "He looked right at me and didn't know me." Nathan drove in silence, letting his friend break apart in the back seat. What could he say? What comfort could he offer back at the penthouse? Lily was waiting with Marcos the moment Richard walked in, still looking like Maxwell Sterling, but with tears streaking his face. She ran to him. "Did you see him? Did you see Dylan?" "I saw him." Richard pulled her into a hug. "And Lily, he remembered the astronauts. He doesn't know why, but he remembers." Lily's face lit up. "That means he's still in there. The real Dylan is still fighting." Rebecca arrived 30 minutes later, her laptop already open. "We got everything. Margaret's full confession about working with Judge Cooper, the mention of 42 previous transactions, the admission about falsifying documents. It's enough to bury her for multiple lifetimes, but not enough to save the other children," Richard said. "She mentioned satellite locations, Boston, Chicago, Eastern Europe. If we move against her now, those operations scatter, the children disappear forever. Which is why we need more." Rebecca pulled up files Igor had been compiling. "We need her computer records. Client lists, financial transactions, every corrupt official on her payroll. We need it all." Nathan was already planning the digital infiltration. "When you go back to finalize payment tomorrow, I'll need physical access to her office network, just 30 seconds near her computer while she's distracted." "I can do that," Richard said, but Rebecca shook her head. "No, you're the face of the operation. You need to maintain cover. We need someone else, someone Margaret won't suspect." They all turned to look at Lily. "No," Richard said immediately. "Absolutely not. She's a child. She's been through enough." "I can do it," Lily said quietly. "I know the building better than anyone. I know where the computer is. I can help." "Lily, please." She looked at Richard with those fierce, determined eyes. "Dylan helped me when I was scared. Let me help him now." The debate went on for hours. Rebecca argued that Lily was their best option. Small, familiar with the layout. Motivated, Nathan countered with the massive risks. Richard refused to consider it at all. Finally, Lily climbed onto the couch, stood up so she was eye level with Richard, and put her small hands on his face. "Mr. Bennett, you said families help each other. You said I'm part of your family now. Let me prove it. Let me help save my brother." Richard closed his eyes. 48 hours ago, he'd promised to protect this child. Now he was considering sending her back into the nightmare she'd escaped. "If anything happens to you—" "It won't," Lily said with confidence that shouldn't exist in a 7-year-old. "Because you'll be there, and Nathan will be there, and Rebecca will be there. I'm not alone anymore. That's what families do. They protect each other." Across town, Margaret Foster counted her money. $3 million would be transferred tomorrow. Jake Miller would be gone by the weekend. She'd move the remaining children to the Chicago location, lie low for a month, then business as usual. She had no idea that her entire empire was crumbling, that every phone call was monitored, that her computer system was about to be compromised, that the little girl who'd escaped was planning to come back. In the hospital wing of the Federal Correctional Institution, where he was being held, Thomas Whitmore made a call on a smuggled phone. "They're FBI," he hissed to Margaret. "Sterling is fake. It's a setup. Get the children out now." But the call never connected. Igor had intercepted it, rerouted it, made Whitmore believe he'd reached Margaret when in fact he'd reached a deadline. Judge Marcus Cooper couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. He'd been in this game too long to ignore his instincts. He made a call to Linda Chen. "Is the Sterling sale confirmed?" "Payments being transferred tomorrow. Why?" "I want extra security." "Something feels off." "Margaret thinks you're being paranoid." "Margaret hasn't survived this long by being careless. I have. Extra security. Do it." Linda agreed and hung up. Then she went to the medical supply room and prepared Dylan's evening medication. A stronger dose, to keep him compliant through the transition. But Lily had taught her roommate, a 9-year-old named Sophia, how to swap pills without being noticed. Sophia had been swapping Dylan's medication for placebo vitamins for the past week, which meant Dylan's mind was clearing. Memories were pushing through the pharmaceutical fog, and tomorrow, when the final confrontation happened, Dylan Bennett would be more present than he'd been in nearly 2 years. The stage was set, the players were in position, and in less than 24 hours, everything would explode. 18 hours before the rescue, Richard Bennett sat in his penthouse war room surrounded by screens showing SAT. Catherine's from 12 different angles. Thermal cameras, infrared, audio feeds. Nathan's surveillance team had transformed the operation into a military-grade intelligence-gathering mission. Movement patterns are consistent, Nathan narrated, pointing to a tablet. Margaret leaves for her morning meeting at 8 a.m. Linda and 2 other staff members, Carlos Rodriguez and Jennifer Park, handle daily operations. 8 children total, including Dylan. Security is tighter since Lily's escape, but they're complacent. They think they're untouchable. Rebecca entered, carrying coffee that smelled like it had been brewing since the Mesozoic era. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Her phone kept buzzing with texts from her ex-husband Tom, increasingly desperate, increasingly angry. She'd stopped reading them. Igor finished the final identity build, Rebecca said. Maxwell Sterling has a complete digital trail going back to his birth certificate. If anyone digs, and Cooper's people will dig, they'll find exactly what we want them to find. Richard barely heard her. He was staring at the thermal image of St. Catherine's, at the small heat signature in the second-floor bedroom that was Dylan, his son, right there, 3 miles away, might as well have been on Mars. Richard, Rebecca's voice cut through his fog. You need to focus. Today you transfer $3 million. Today you gain Margaret's complete trust. Today we plant the devices that will bring down her entire network. I know. Do you? Rebecca sat across from him. Because I've seen operatives lose it at this stage. You're about to have voluntary contact with your son and pretend he's a commodity you're purchasing. That's psychological torture. I can handle it. Your hands are shaking. Richard looked down. She was right. He clenched them into fists. Lily appeared in the doorway, dressed in dark clothes, her hair tied back. Marcos hovered behind her like a nervous guardian angel. I'm ready. No, Richard said for the 100th time. We're not using you. It's too dangerous. Mr. Bennett. I said no. Lily's face set with determination that reminded Richard painfully of his own mother. Then I'll go by myself, through the window, the one that doesn't lock properly. I remember where it is. Lily, you can't. Watch me, she crossed her arms. Dylan needs help. I'm helping. You can either let me help safely, with all of you protecting me, or you can try to stop me and I'll just run away and do it alone. Nathan made a sound halfway between a laugh and a groan. She's got you there. This isn't funny. No, Nathan agreed, but it is true. Richard, we need access to Margaret's office computer. The security is too tight for a remote hack. Someone needs to be physically present to plant the device. Lily is small, knows the layout, and Margaret won't suspect her. She's the logical choice. I don't care about logic. She's 7 years old. I'm almost 8, Lily corrected, and I'm not scared, not anymore, because I have you, and Dylan has you, and we're going to save everyone. The argument continued for another hour before Richard finally, reluctantly agreed, but only with extensive safety protocols. Lily would wear a tracking device. She'd have an open microphone. At the first sign of danger, the entire FBI tactical team would storm the building. 45 seconds, Rebecca told Lily seriously. That's your window. You get to the office, plug in the USB drive Igor prepared, then get out. 45 seconds. Can you do that? I can do it in 30, Lily said confidently. Igor joined via video call, his face illuminated by 6 computer monitors in his darkened apartment. Empty Red Bull cans littered his desk. Little one, he said in his heavy Russian accent. This device is very simple. You plug into computer USB port, any USB port, does not matter which. Device does rest. Lights will blink 3 times. When lights stop, you remove and leave. Da, Lily repeated, grinning. Good girl. You are brave, like Siberian tiger. At noon, Richard, as Maxwell Sterling, walked into Chase Bank's private client division and authorized a wire transfer of $3 million to an offshore account controlled by Margaret Foster. The bank manager, a nervous man named Theodore Blackwell, processed the transfer without questions. Rich people did eccentric things with their money all the time. What Blackwell didn't know was that every dollar was flagged and traceable. The moment it landed in Margaret's account, FBI forensic accountants would begin tracing her entire financial network. Richard received confirmation at 12:47 p.m. The money was transferred. He called Whitmore. "Payment confirmed," Richard said in his perfect British accent. "I'll collect the child this evening at 9. "Excellent, Mr. Sterling. Director Foster is preparing all final documentation. You'll leave with your son tonight." "My son." The words were true, but not in the way Whitmore meant. At 3 p.m. the team assembled for final preparations. Nathan distributed communication devices, nearly invisible earpieces that looked like hearing aids. Lily got a tiny GPS tracker sewn into her shoelace, along with a microphone disguised as a shirt button. "Remember," Nathan told her gently, "if anything feels wrong, if you're scared, if you see anything dangerous, you say the code word." "What's the code word?" "Astronaut," Lily said. "If I say astronaut, you come get me. Right, and we'll be there in 20 seconds, I promise." Marcos looked like he might be sick. "I shouldn't have let her watch me clean my weapon this morning. Now she thinks this is all an adventure." "It kind of is," Lily said. "A scary adventure, but an adventure like in movies." "Movies have stunt people," Marcos muttered. Rebecca's phone buzzed again. "Tom," she finally answered. "What?" "I need help, Becky, real help. I'm gonna lose the apartment. I need 5,000. I sent you 500 last week. It wasn't enough. Please, I'm your husband. Ex-husband, and I'm working. Don't call again." She hung up and turned off her phone completely. Whatever crisis Tom was manufacturing could wait. 8 children couldn't. At 6 p.m., as the sun began setting, Richard received a text from Margaret. "All arrangements complete. Looking forward to concluding our business tonight." At 7 p.m., Nathan's team took positions around St. Catherine's, snipers on nearby roofs, agents in unmarked vehicles, Rebecca in the mobile command center coordinating with FBI tactical units standing by 2 blocks away. At 7:30 p.m., Sienna arrived for a final check on Richard's appearance and accent. "You're perfect," she said. "Your nephew would be proud of what you're doing." "I never found him," Sienna said quietly. "Never got him back. But maybe saving these children will count for something." At 8 p.m., Lily kissed Richard on the cheek. "See you soon, Dad." The word hit Richard in the chest. Dad, she'd never called him that before. "Be safe," he whispered. "Please be safe." At 8:15 p.m., Lily slipped through the malfunctioning kitchen window, the same window she'd escaped through 3 nights ago. The building was busy with dinner prep. No one noticed a small girl in dark clothes, sliding through shadows she knew by heart. At 8:30 p.m., Margaret Foster checked her appearance in the mirror, applied fresh lipstick, and smiled. $3 million. Another successful transaction. Tomorrow she'd move the remaining children to Chicago. In a week, this location would be cleared and shut down permanently, too hot after Lily's escape. Time to go dormant and reopen elsewhere. At 8:45 p.m., Judge Marcus Cooper made a final call to Derek Kane, the private investigator. "Anything suspicious on Sterling?" "Nothing. Guy's clean. Hotel records, restaurant reservations, even got photographed at a British expat meetup in Soho. He's legit. Then why do I still feel like something's wrong? Paranoia's kept you alive this long. But sometimes paranoia is just paranoia." Cooper hung up. Still uneasy, at 8:50 p.m., Lily reached Margaret's office. The door was locked, but Lily had watched Linda enter the code 100 times. 4729. She punched it in. The lock clicked. Inside, Margaret's computer sat on the desk, screen glowing with a spreadsheet of transactions. Lily pulled the USB drive from her pocket, her hands steady. She found a USB port on the side of the monitor and plugged it in. The device blinked once, twice, 3 times, 30 seconds. At 8:55 p.m., Richard, as Maxwell Sterling, pulled up to St. Catherine's in a black Mercedes. Nathan was driving, dressed as a chauffeur. Linda Chen met them at the door. Mr. Sterling, right on time. Director Foster is waiting. At 8:56 p.m., in Igor's apartment, code began flowing across his screens. "I am in," he announced via the comm channel. "Downloading everything, client lists, financial records, locations, employee data, everything." At 8:57 p.m., Lily removed the USB drive and slipped out of the office, closing the door silently behind her. Her heart was hammering, but she'd done it 42 seconds, faster than required. At 8:58 p.m., she whispered into her microphone, "Device planted, leaving now." At 8:59 p.m., Richard entered Margaret Foster's office for the last time as Maxwell Sterling. And at exactly 9,000 p.m., everything went to hell. Carlos Rodriguez, doing a security sweep, noticed the office door was slightly ajar. He checked the security footage, rewound it, and saw Lily. "Director Foster!" He burst into the office where Richard and Margaret were shaking hands. "The Parker girl. She's here. She was in your office." Margaret's face went from welcoming to furious in an instant. She grabbed Richard's arm. "Did you bring her? Is this a setup?" Richard's mind raced. Lily was supposed to be gone by now, out the window, safe, but then he heard her voice in his earpiece. Breathless and terrified. "They saw me. They're coming, astronaut, astronaut," the code word. Richard dropped his British accent. "Rebecca, go! Go now!" He drove his fist into Carlos's face, grabbed Margaret's arm as she reached for her desk phone, and twisted it behind her back. Nathan burst through the door, weapon drawn. "FBI, nobody move!" Linda tried to run. She made it to the stairs before Rebecca appeared, gun pointed directly at her chest. Down, on the ground, now. The building erupted in chaos. Children screaming, FBI agents pouring through every entrance, Margaret fighting like a cornered animal, and somewhere on the second floor, Dylan heard the commotion and felt something snap awake in his mind. The medication had worn off. His thoughts were clear for the first time in nearly 2 years. He ran toward the noise, toward the shouting, and saw something impossible. A man who looked familiar, a man fighting to reach the stairs, a man whose eyes, when they met Dylan's, held recognition and love so powerful it was almost physical. "Dylan!" the man shouted. "Dylan!" And Dylan remembered. He remembered everything. "Dad!" The word came out as a whisper, then louder. "Dad!" Richard saw his son standing in the hallway, lucid, aware. Real. He threw off Margaret and ran. But Margaret was faster. She pulled a knife from her desk drawer, always prepared for emergencies, and grabbed Dylan, pressing the blade against his neck. "One more step, and I kill him." The entire building froze. Richard stopped, hands raised. "Margaret, please don't do this." "You lied!" Margaret's face was twisted with rage. "You're Richard Bennett, the father, this whole time." "Yes." Richard's voice was steady despite his terror. "I'm Richard Bennett. And that's Dylan Bennett, my son, the boy you kidnapped, the boy you drugged, the boy you planned to sell. He's merchandise. He's mine. He's a child." Rebecca appeared at the top of the stairs. Weapon trained on Margaret. "It's over, Margaret. Judge Cooper is being arrested as we speak. Your satellite locations in Boston and Chicago are being raided right now. Your entire network is crumbling. You have nowhere to go." "Then I'll take him with me." Margaret pressed the knife harder. A thin line of blood appeared on Dylan's neck. Dylan whimpered, his newfound clarity making the fear worse. "Not better, Dad?" And then a small voice came from behind Margaret. "Let him go." Lily stood there holding Carlos's dropped weapon with both small hands. It was almost comically large in her grip, but her stance was steady. She'd watched Marcos clean and handle his weapon enough to know the basics. "Let my brother go," Lily repeated. Margaret turned, distracted for just a fraction of a second. It was enough. Richard lunged forward, grabbing Margaret's wrist and wrenching it away from Dylan's neck. The knife clattered to the floor. Nathan tackled Margaret from behind. Dylan fell forward, and Richard caught him, pulling him close, wrapping his arms around his son for the first time in 729 days. "I've got you," Richard sobbed into Dylan's hair. "I've got you. You're safe. Dad's here. Dad's here." Dylan clung to him with desperate strength. I remember the park. I remember the astronaut books. I remember you." Lily dropped the weapon and ran to them, throwing her arms around both of them. "We did it! We saved him!" Margaret was being dragged away, screaming obscenities. Linda was cuffed and silent. Carlos was bleeding from his broken nose, but secured. Rebecca coordinated the rescue of the other 7 children: Ethan Cooper, the Moretti twins, Sophia and Isabella, Grace Anderson and 3 others, Marcus, Jade and little Tommy Chen, who was only 5 as the children were escorted out to waiting ambulances and social workers. Richard sat on the floor, holding Dylan and Lily, unable to let go. "It's over," Rebecca said gently. "It's really over." But Richard barely heard her. He was too busy memorizing the weight of his son in his arms, the sound of his breathing, the warmth of his small body. Finally safe. At 11:47 p.m. in 6 different countries, simultaneous raids rescued 23 children from St. Catherine's satellite operations. At 11:52 p.m., 47 corrupt police officers were arrested. At 11:58 p.m., 12 judges, including Marcus Cooper, were taken into custody. At 12:03 a.m., 8 politicians resigned ahead of arrest warrants. By morning, the news would explode, the biggest child trafficking bust in U.S. history. But for now, in this moment, it was just a father and his children, reunited against impossible odds. "Let's go home," Richard finally said. Dylan looked up at him with clear, unclouded eyes. "Home, home," Richard confirmed. "Your real home, where you've always belonged." And for the first time in 729 days, Dylan Bennett smiled. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and the peculiar quietness that comes from trauma, finally given permission to rest. Dylan lay in a bed designed for adult patients, looking impossibly small against the white sheets, an IV drip feeding hydration and nutrients into his dehydrated system. Richard sat in a chair pulled so close their hands touched. And he hadn't moved in 6 hours. Dr. Sarah Chen, 45, wire-rimmed glasses, voice like warm honey, checked Dylan's vitals while explaining the detoxification process to Richard for the 3rd time. He couldn't seem to retain the information. His brain felt stuffed with cotton. "The drugs they used are powerful, but not permanent," Dr. Chen said patiently. "Benzodiazepines mixed with mild antipsychotics, designed to suppress memory formation and reduce emotional response. We're flushing his system, and within 72 hours he should be completely clear. But the memories," Richard's voice was hoarse from crying, "will they all come back? Some will, some might not. The brain is remarkably resilient, but 2 years of chemical suppression." Dr. Chen adjusted her glasses. "He'll need therapy, lots of it. But Mr. Bennett, your son is strong. He fought through medication that would have completely erased most people. That takes extraordinary willpower." In the bed next to Dylan's, Dr. Chen had insisted they stay together. Lily slept fitfully, occasionally calling out for her mother Aurora, sometimes for Dylan, once for Richard, in a voice that broke his heart. "Dad, don't leave me." Nathan appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. He'd been up for 48 hours straight. "Zoe wanted me to bring these." He held up a bag from Dylan's favorite toy store, the one Richard used to take him to every Saturday before the kidnapping. Inside were astronaut figurines, a book about the Mars rovers, and a stuffed rocket ship. "You told her?" Richard asked. "She figured it out, kid's smart." Nathan set the bag on the nightstand. "Also, she wanted me to tell Dylan that the bracelet she found at school belonged to a girl named Emma Rodriguez. Emma was found last night in the Boston location. She's safe now." Richard processed this slowly. The bullying incident at Zoe's school had been connected to St. Catherine's all along. A child had dropped her ID bracelet, and some cruel kid had stolen it. Such a small detail, but it meant another family was whole again. "How many?" Richard asked. "How many total children rescued?" 23 internationally, 8 from the main location. 42 previously adopted children are being traced and investigated. Some of those adoptions might be legitimate rescues. Others are... Nathan trailed off. "We're sorting through it." Rebecca entered, carrying coffee that actually smelled decent for once. She'd been at FBI headquarters for hours, coordinating the massive operations aftermath. "Margaret's talking," she announced, "trying to cut a deal. She gave up names of clients, other trafficking operations she's heard about, everything. Judge Cooper is refusing to talk, but his wife is singing like a bird. Apparently she knew about his adopted son and has been guilt-ridden for a decade." "Good," Richard said flatly. "I hope they both rot." Rebecca sat on the windowsill, cradling her coffee. "The press is circling. National story. International, actually. They want interviews. They want the heroic father who infiltrated a trafficking ring. They want—" "No!" Richard's voice was steel. "Dylan and Lily get privacy, complete privacy. I'll do one interview, one, asking the media to respect their recovery. That's it." "I figured you'd say that." Rebecca smiled slightly. 60 Minutes is offering prime-time slot. "Fine, one interview, then we disappear from public eye." Dylan stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He looked confused for a moment. "Where am I? Who are these people?" Before memory reasserted itself. His hand tightened around Richard's. "Dad, I'm here, astronaut. I had a dream, a bad dream. I was back there. Director Foster was—" Dylan's breathing quickened, panic setting in. "She's in jail," Richard said firmly, stroking Dylan's hair. "She can never hurt you again, I promise. She's locked up where she belongs." "What about Linda and Carlos?" "Also in jail. Everyone who hurt you is in jail." Dylan processed this slowly, his 6-year-old mind trying to grasp concepts of justice and safety after 2 years of captivity. "What about the other kids, Ethan and Sophia, and—" "All safe, all going home to their families. Even Lily." Richard glanced at Lily's sleeping form. "Lily's staying with us. She's your sister now, if that's okay with you." Dylan's face brightened despite his exhaustion. "Really? Forever? Forever? Good, because she's brave. She saved me." Dylan's eyes were drooping again, the medication for pain and anxiety pulling him back towards sleep. "Dad, can you read me a story about astronauts?" Richard picked up the book Nathan had brought and began reading about rovers exploring Mars, his voice breaking occasionally while his son drifted into genuine safe sleep for the first time in 729 days. Across town, Margaret Foster sat in an interrogation room, facing federal prosecutors. Her lawyer, a public defender named James Morrison who looked about 12, was advising her to cooperate fully. 15 counts of kidnapping, 43 counts of human trafficking, conspiracy, fraud, the list goes on, the prosecutor said. "You're looking at multiple life sentences, but if you give us everything, every name, every location, every transaction, we might recommend concurrent sentencing instead of consecutive." Margaret lit a cigarette, despite the no-smoking policy. And nobody stopped her. "I want immunity, not happening. Then I want—" "You're not in a position to negotiate. You kidnapped 43 children over 15 years. You sold them to people who—" The prosecutor couldn't finish the sentence. Margaret blew smoke. "Those children had better lives than they would have had: rich families, private schools, opportunities. You drugged them and erased their memories. I gave them fresh starts." But even Margaret's voice lacked conviction now. The empire had fallen, the protection was gone. All that remained was a 60-year-old woman facing eternity in prison. She stubbed out the cigarette. "Fine, I'll tell you everything, but I want protective custody. Some of my clients are powerful, and they won't want me talking." In his luxury apartment on the Upper East Side, Thomas Whitmore was already packing. Passport, cash, offshore account numbers. He'd heard about the arrests. Knew it was only a matter of time before they came for him. He had a plane chartered to the Cayman Islands, then on to a country with no extradition treaty. He never made it to the airport. FBI agents arrested him in the parking garage of his building at 4:47 a.m. Judge Marcus Cooper sat in a holding cell, staring at his hands. His wife hadn't visited. His son, the boy they'd adopted through Margaret's network, had been taken by Child Services for evaluation. His career, his reputation, his entire life was ash. A guard brought him news. His son's biological parents had been located. They were wealthy. Chinese industrialists who'd had their 3-year-old taken from a park in Beijing 8 years ago. DNA confirmed the match. Cooper would have to watch his son, the boy he'd raised for a decade, be returned to strangers who were his real parents. It was, he reflected bitterly, perfect justice in the hospital. Lily woke up screaming. She'd dreamed about her mother Aurora, about being abandoned again, about being sent back to St. Catherine's. Richard was there instantly, pulling her into his arms. "You're safe. You're with family. Nobody's taking you away." "Promise," Lily sobbed into his shoulder. "I promise you're my daughter now, mine and Dylan's forever, even if my mum comes back." Richard thought about the private investigator's report on Aurora Parker, currently homeless, addicted to methamphetamine, living on the streets of Los Angeles. Even if she could be found, even if she could get clean, Lily deserved stability, deserved safety, deserved parents who wouldn't abandon her again. "Even then," Richard said firmly, "but Lily, you might want to meet her someday when you're older, when you're ready, and that would be okay too. You get to choose." Dylan woke up and called out groggily, "Lily, you okay?" "Bad dream." "Me too. Want to hear about the Mars rover Dad was reading to me." And so, at 3 a.m. in a hospital room, Richard read about robots exploring alien landscapes to 2 traumatized children who were slowly learning that some promises don't get broken. Dr. Chen checked on them at dawn. "How are we doing?" "Nightmares," Richard reported. "Both of them. Normal, expected. They'll probably continue for months. I'm recommending intensive therapy, 3 times a week minimum. There's a specialist, Dr. Patricia Santos, who works exclusively with trafficking survivors. She's excellent with children." "Whatever they need," Richard said. "Money's not an object." "Good, because this is a marathon, not a sprint," Dr. Chen made notes on her tablet. "The physical recovery is the easy part. The psychological recovery will take years." "We have years," Richard said, looking at his sleeping children. "We have all the time in the world now." Rebecca arrived with news. The other families started arriving. Grace Anderson's parents are in the waiting room crying. The Moretti grandparents flew in from Italy. She paused, emotional. "It's beautiful and heartbreaking." "And Ethan Cooper?" Richard asked. "His father's in jail. What happens to him?" His mother had no idea about Marcus's involvement. "She's devastated but determined to protect Ethan. They'll be okay, I think." Nathan appeared with breakfast. McDonald's for the kids, actual food for the adults. Zoe was with him, having insisted on coming. "Mr. Bennett," Zoe was 13, all awkward angles and fierce loyalty to her father, "I just wanted to say, what you did was really brave, like superhero brave." "Your father's the brave one," Richard said. "He had my back through everything." Nathan looked uncomfortable with praise. "As always, just doing my job." "No," Richard corrected. "You went way beyond your job. You put yourself and your family at risk for us." "I won't forget that." Zoe smiled at Lily, who was now awake and eating hash browns. "Hey, want to be friends? I know some good games on my phone." Lily looked at Richard for permission. He nodded. The 2 girls sat together, heads bent over Zoe's phone, and for a moment everything felt almost normal. Dr. Chen discharged them that afternoon with prescriptions, therapy referrals, and strict instructions about rest and routine. The drive back to Richard's penthouse felt surreal. Dylan kept asking if they were really going home, really leaving the hospital, really free. "Really," Richard confirmed for the 5th time. "Home. You're home, with your own room and your own bed and all your old toys." But when they arrived, Dylan stopped in the doorway of his bedroom, perfectly preserved for 2 years, waiting, and started crying. "I remember," he whispered. "I remember this room. I remember the astronaut poster. I remember—" He picked up a stuffed rocket ship from the bed. "Mr. Zoom. I remember Mr. Zoom." Richard knelt beside him. "Do you remember loving him?" "I remember you giving him to me for my birthday, my 4th birthday." Dylan clutched the toy. "And I remember the park. I remember you on the phone. And then I remember being scared and someone grabbing me and everything going dark and—" "Stop!" Richard pulled Dylan close. You don't have to remember that part right now. Just remember the good parts. Remember Mr. Zoom. Remember reading about astronauts. Remember that you're safe now." Lily explored her new room. Richard had hired decorators to work overnight, creating a space fit for a little girl with rainbow bedding, a bookshelf full of books, and the unicorn backpack she'd loved displayed prominently. "This is mine." She touched everything reverently. "All mine. All yours," Richard confirmed. That night, Richard made dinner, or tried to. He burned the pasta, oversalted the sauce, and forgot vegetables existed. The kids ate it anyway, declaring it pretty good, actually. They fell asleep watching a movie about astronauts. Both children nestled against Richard on the couch, their breathing synchronizing as they finally relaxed. Nathan stopped by to check security systems. "You did good," he told Richard quietly. "Really good." "We're just getting started," Richard replied. "The hard part's ahead, helping them heal, helping them become kids again. You'll manage. You're already managing." After Nathan left, Richard carried each child to their bed, tucked them in, kissed their foreheads. Then he went to his own room and stood in the shower until the hot water ran out, letting 2 years of fear and desperation and hope wash away. When he finally emerged, wrapped in his robe, he found Dylan standing in his doorway. "Dad, can I sleep in your room? I don't want to be alone." "Of course, astronaut. Come on." Minutes later, Lily appeared. "Me too." And so Richard Bennett fell asleep with both his children in his king-size bed, Dylan on one side, Lily on the other, their small, warm bodies anchoring him to a reality that still felt too good, too fragile to be real. Tomorrow would bring therapy sessions and media calls and legal proceedings. Tomorrow would bring nightmares and setbacks and the long, difficult work of healing. But tonight, they were just a family, together and safe, learning what home felt like. 3 months later, autumn painted Manhattan in shades of amber and rust. Richard's penthouse no longer looked like a war room. The surveillance equipment was gone, replaced by finger paintings taped to the refrigerator, homework assignments scattered on the dining table, and the constant background noise of children actually being children. Dylan sat in Dr. Patricia Santos's office, a space deliberately designed to feel safe, soft lighting, comfortable furniture, toys scattered strategically for younger clients. Dr. Santos, 50, black hair streaked with silver, eyes that missed nothing, had been working with Dylan 3 times a week since the rescue. "Tell me about school," Dr. Santos said, her voice gentle but not condescending. Dylan hated when adults talked down to him. "It's okay, different." Dylan played with a Rubik's Cube, his hands needing something to do. "The teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. She's nice, and there's a kid in my class, Lucas, who uses a wheelchair. He's funny. And the other kids, how are they treating you?" Dylan hesitated. This was the hard part. Some of them know about what happened, their parents told them, so they're weird around me, like I'm made of glass or something. That must be frustrating. "Yeah, I just want to be normal." Dylan solved one side of the cube, then scrambled it again. "But then sometimes I'm in class and I forget where I am. I think I'm back in that place, and I have to remind myself it's real, that I'm really free." What helps when that happens? I touch my bracelet. Dylan pulled up his sleeve, showing the ID bracelet Richard had given him, the original one, recovered from St. Catherine's evidence. "It has my real name, and when I touch it, I remember who I am." Dr. Santos made notes. "The nightmares, how frequent. 3 times this week, same one, mostly. I'm in the orphanage and Dad comes to get me. But Director Foster won't let him. She takes me away, and I'm yelling for Dad, but he can't hear me. And how does the nightmare end? I wake up and go to Dad's room. He lets me sleep in his bed. Is that bad? Am I supposed to be more independent?" "Dylan, there's no supposed to in healing. You need your father close. That's perfectly normal." Down the hall, in another therapy office, Lily sat with her own therapist, Dr. Raj Patel, the gentle man with the grey mustache who'd been assigned her case. They were discussing Aurora. "I found her," Lily said quietly. Dad hired someone to find her. She's in Los Angeles, living on the streets. How do you feel about that? Sad, but also, Lily struggled for words, also kind of relieved, because it means she didn't leave me because I was bad. She left because she was sick. Addiction is an illness, Dr. Patel confirmed. Do you think, Lily twisted her hands together, do you think she loved me even a little? I think she loved you as much as she was capable of, but her addiction loved her more. That's not your fault. I wrote her a letter. Dad said he'd mail it if I wanted, but I don't know if I want. What's holding you back? What if she doesn't write back? That would hurt more than not trying. And what if she does write back? Lily considered this. Then maybe someday, when I'm older, I could meet her, if she's better, if she's clean, just to tell her I'm okay, that I have a family now, that I'm happy. Back in Richard's penthouse, Nathan was helping Richard assemble a bookshelf while Marco supervised, poorly, and ate leftover pizza. The three men had developed an easy camaraderie over the months. Zoe's doing better, Nathan reported, fitting pieces together. The bullying stopped once that kid's dad got arrested. Turns out he was one of the corrupt cops on Margaret's payroll. Karma, Marco said around a mouthful of pepperoni. Richard's phone rang. Rebecca, got a minute. Always, what's up? The trials are being scheduled. Margaret's is first next month. They're asking if Dylan would be willing to testify. Richard's hand tightened on the phone. He's 6 years old. I know they'd do it via video conference with Dr. Santos present, very gentle questioning. But Richard, his testimony could help put her away for good. Multiple life sentences instead of the possibility of parole. I'll ask him. But if he says no, the answer's no. Understood. That evening, Richard made dinner, actual edible dinner this time, pasta primavera that didn't taste like salted cardboard. Lily set the table. Dylan poured juice. And they sat together like a normal family, having a normal meal, except they'd never be completely normal, Richard thought. But maybe normal was overrated anyway. Dylan, Richard began carefully, I need to talk to you about something serious. Dylan looked up, immediately worried. What? The people who hurt you, Director Foster and the others, they're going to have trials. That means judges will decide their punishments. The lawyers asked if you'd be willing to talk about what happened to you. Dylan's face went pale. I have to see her. No, you'd be on video. She couldn't see you or touch you or hurt you, and Dr. Santos would be right there with you. But Dylan, you don't have to do this. If you say no, that's okay. They have plenty of other evidence. Would it help, Dylan asked. Would it make sure she goes to jail forever? It might help, yes. Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll do it. Because there might be other kids she could hurt if she gets out, and I don't want that. Richard's throat tightened. You're very brave, astronaut. Can Lily come with me? Not in the room, but like, in the building. Of course. Lily reached across the table and squeezed Dylan's hand. I'll be right there the whole time. That night, Richard received a call from Grace Anderson's parents, Grace. The 6-year-old who'd been rescued from St. Catherine's was struggling badly. Night terrors, regression, attachment issues. We were wondering, Mrs. Anderson said hesitantly, if Dylan and Lily might be willing to meet with Grace. Sometimes other survivors understand in ways we can't. Richard discussed it with both kids. Dylan was immediately willing. Lily was hesitant but agreed. The meeting happened at a neutral location, a family therapy center, with Dr. Santos facilitating. Grace was tiny, with blonde curls and eyes that had seen too much. She clung to her mother initially, but when she saw Dylan, something shifted. You were there, Grace whispered. In the orphanage, you gave me your dessert once when I was sad. I remember, Dylan said softly. You were afraid of the dark. I'm still afraid of the dark. Me too, but it's different now. Because we're safe and we have families who love us. They talked for an hour, stilted at first, then more naturally. Lily showed Grace a picture she'd drawn. Dylan explained how he used his bracelet as an anchor to reality. Grace cried, but they were healing tears, not despairing ones. Can we be friends? Grace asked as they were leaving. Real friends, not orphanage friends. We're already friends, Dylan assured her. The next week brought the 60 Minutes interview. Richard had agreed to it reluctantly, but it needed to be done, to tell the story properly, to protect the children's privacy going forward, to put a face to the statistics. The interviewer, a veteran journalist named Carol Brennan, was respectful but thorough. She asked about the investigation, the infiltration, the rescue. She asked how the children were healing. She asked what Richard wanted people to know. "I want people to understand that these children exist," Richard said, choosing his words carefully. "Right now, today, there are kids being held in situations like Dylan was, and sometimes their parents are still looking, still hoping. So if you have information about any missing child, please come forward. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Be the person who makes the call." The interview aired to massive viewership. The response was overwhelming. Donation pledges to trafficking prevention organizations, tips about suspicious activities, and hundreds of messages from families of missing children asking for help. Richard couldn't save them all, but he could do something. He established the Dylan's Hope Foundation, funding search efforts for missing children and supporting survivors of trafficking. Rebecca joined the board. Nathan became head of security. Sienna volunteered her services. Igor offered his technical skills. Even Dr. Santos and Dr. Patel contributed, offering pro bono therapy services to children. The foundation helped recover. Margaret Foster's trial began on a cold October morning. Dylan testified via video link, with Dr. Santos beside him. Richard, watching from the next room, he was composed, articulate, devastating. "She gave us pills that made us forget," Dylan said clearly. "She told us our families didn't want us. She said we were lucky she was giving us new homes, but she was lying. My dad never stopped looking for me, not for one day." Margaret sat stone-faced through the testimony, but when Dylan finished, something cracked in her expression. Not remorse exactly, but perhaps the beginning of recognition that she destroyed dozens of lives for money. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts, 15 consecutive life sentences. Judge Cooper's trial was next. His wife's testimony was damning. Years of suspicious behavior. The adopted son who never had proper paperwork. Money moving through offshore accounts. He was sentenced to 40 years. Thomas Whitmore got 25 years. Linda Chen, who'd cooperated extensively, got 15. Carlos Rodriguez got 12, one by one. The empire fell. In November, Richard received a letter from Aurora Parker. The private investigator had finally tracked her down and delivered Lily's letter. Aurora had been in rehab for 6 weeks. Fighting to get clean. The letter was shaky, barely literate, but heartbreaking. "Dear Lily, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry every day. I was sick. I'm still sick but trying to get better. You deserve better than me. You deserve the family you have now. I love you. I always loved you. I just didn't love you more than the drugs. I'm going to fix that. Maybe someday you'll want to meet me again. I understand if you don't. I just want you to be happy, your mom." Aurora Lily read it in Richard's lap, crying quietly. "Can we write back?" "If you want to. I want to tell her I forgive her. I don't know if I do yet, but I want to try." "That's very mature of you." "Dr. Patel says forgiveness is for me, not for her. It means I don't have to carry the anger anymore. Dr. Patel is a smart man." That Thanksgiving, Richard's dining room was packed. Nathan and Zoe, Rebecca, Marcos and his 3 kids, Dr. Santos, Sienna, Igor, who'd flown in from Russia, Grace Anderson and her parents, the Moretti grandparents, Ethan Cooper and his mother. It was loud, chaotic. Beautiful. Dylan and Lily helped Richard cook, or tried to. Lily accidentally dumped an entire container of salt in the mashed potatoes. Dylan burned the dinner rolls, but nobody cared. The meal was about being together, about survival, about families created through love rather than just biology. "What are you thankful for?" Richard asked the kids before dinner, continuing a tradition from Dylan's early childhood. "I'm thankful for you, Dad," Dylan said, "and for Lily, and for being home. I'm thankful for my new family," Lily added, and for being brave enough to run away to find help. Richard looked around the table at all these people, brought together by tragedy but bound by hope. I'm thankful for second chances and for the people who never gave up. They ate, they laughed, they told stories, and for the first time in 3 months, Dylan made it through an entire night without nightmares. Progress, Richard thought. Slow, painful, beautiful progress. They were going to be okay. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be quick, but they were going to be okay. Winter arrived with unexpected gentleness. Snow falling on Manhattan like a blanket of second chances. 6 months had passed since the rescue, and Richard's penthouse had transformed into a home, complete with mismatched furniture, a kitchen that smelled like cookies, and constant laughter. Dylan's teacher called one afternoon. "Mr. Bennett, Dylan did something remarkable today. We had a new student, a girl from foster care, very shy. Dylan invited her to his table, introduced her to everyone, made sure she felt included. He's becoming a leader." That evening, Richard took both children to visit his mother's grave. He knelt at the headstone, brushing away snow. "Mom, I want you to meet your grandchildren. This is Dylan. You remember him, and this is Lily. She's ours now, too." "Hi, Grandma," Dylan said shyly. "Dad says you used to read me stories about the stars." Lily was hesitant. "You'd never had a grandma before. Is it okay if I pretend you're mine too?" The following week brought Lily's piano recital in the penthouse. She wore a purple dress with sparkles and approached the piano with determination. The simple melody wasn't perfect, but it was honest and beautiful. "That was amazing," Dylan told her afterward. "Next time I'll play something with you. We could be a duo." But healing wasn't linear. Days later, while shopping, Dylan saw a woman who looked like Linda Chen. He froze, began hyperventilating, couldn't speak. Richard got him outside and helped him through breathing exercises. "I'm sorry," Dylan kept saying. "I should be over this by now. You have nothing to apologize for. Recovery takes time, and I'm going to be right here beside you the entire time." In Los Angeles, Aurora Parker was 90 days sober, attending a meetings daily. She'd gotten a job, found a room in a sober living house, and replied to every letter Lily sent. "I can't undo what I did," Aurora wrote, "but I can try to become someone worthy of your forgiveness." Lily showed the letter to Richard. "Do you think people can really change?" "I think some people can, if they want it badly enough and do the work." December brought unexpected news. A woman named Rebecca Chen called, her voice emotional. "Mr. Bennett, your foundation helped locate my daughter. She was taken 4 years ago. They found her in Thailand. She's coming home." Christmas Eve arrived with the penthouse decorated in chaotic splendor. Nathan, Rebecca with her new girlfriend Patricia, Marcos and his family all came over. They ate too much, played games, let the kids stay up late. "You did good," Rebecca told Richard on the balcony. "I'm thinking of leaving the FBI to work with the foundation full-time." Christmas morning brought joy. Dylan opened a serious telescope and cried when he realized what it was. Lily received books, art supplies, and a charm bracelet. "There's room for more charms," Richard explained, "for every important moment." The adoption hearing was January 15th. Judge Williams looked at Lily seriously. "Do you understand what adoption means?" "Yes, Your Honor, it means Richard becomes my real dad, legally, and Dylan becomes my real brother, and we're a forever family." "And is that what you want?" "More than anything in the whole world." "Then by the power vested in me, I hereby grant this petition, Lily Bennett. Welcome to your forever family." The courtroom erupted in applause. They chose a silver heart charm with the date engraved that evening, tucking both children into bed. Dylan asked about Director Foster. "She's in prison, maximum security for the rest of her life." "I have dreams sometimes where I forgive her," Dylan admitted. "Then I wake up feeling bad." Dylan, "Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about you not carrying hatred forever." In her room, Lily wrote to Aurora, "I got adopted today. I'm still sad you left me, but I'm not angry anymore. This is my family now." Richard and Dylan, they chose me. Richard's phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Foundation just got a tip about trafficking ring in Miami. 8 children. Are you in?" Richard looked at his sleeping children, then typed, "I'm in, always." He checked on them one more time. Dylan clutched his rocket ship. Lily's charm bracelet glinted in the nightlight. "I love you both more than the universe," he whispered. "And I promise I'll always protect you, always." For the first time in 729 days, Richard slept through the entire night without waking once. Spring arrived like a promise kept. Dylan's 10th birthday approached, and Richard was learning to bake, standing in the kitchen at 6 a.m., following a YouTube tutorial for astronaut-themed cake, flour in his hair. "Dad, you're a disaster," Lily observed. "I'm an artistic disaster." There's a difference. They worked together, creating a cake that would never win awards but was made with love. At school, Mrs. Rodriguez arranged a small celebration. But when Dylan got home, he found something unexpected. The living room filled with Grace Anderson. The Moretti twins, Ethan Cooper, Maya Chen, and others, all the children from St. Catherine's. "It's a reunion," Richard explained. "All your friends who survived together." The party was chaotic and perfect. Children played games, ate cake, and started talking about their experiences in healing ways. "I went a whole month without waking up scared," Grace announced. "I can ride the subway now," Ethan added. When guests left, Nathan arrived with a large wrapped box. Dylan opened it to find a high-end telescope with a plaque, "To Dylan Bennett, whose courage inspired the creation of Dylan's Hope Foundation." "I didn't do anything special," Dylan said. "You survived," Rebecca replied. "You testified. You helped other children feel less alone. You're a hero, kid." That night, Dylan asked his father on the balcony, "When I was in that place, I used to think about my real family. Even when I couldn't remember, I knew someone was looking for me. Was that stupid? That was hope. That was your soul knowing the truth." Inside, Lily was on the phone with Aurora. "I'm 6 months sober," Aurora told her. "I have a real apartment now, taking classes." "That's great, Mom. Will you maybe want to visit someday? No pressure." Lily looked at Richard, who nodded. "Maybe this summer, just for a day, with my dad there." The Foundation's one-year anniversary gala was held in May. Richard gave a speech with his children beside him. "A year ago, I was a desperate father who'd lost everything. Then a brave 7-year-old girl knocked on my door and gave me back my son. This foundation exists because Lily Parker refused to accept that bad people win." By night's end, they'd raised $4.2 million. August brought the meeting with Aurora in Los Angeles. She was there early, visibly nervous, clean, with clear eyes and steady hands. "Lily, oh my God, look at you." They spent 2 hours together. Awkward at first, then easier. Aurora told Lily about recovery, the meetings, the hard work of staying sober. "Do you hate me?" Aurora finally asked. Lily thought carefully. "I used to, but hate is heavy. I decided to put it down. That doesn't mean I forget. It just means I'm not going to let it make me mean. Can I see you again, maybe at Christmas?" Lily looked at Richard, who nodded. "Maybe, we'll see." September brought Rebecca and Patricia's wedding. Lily was flower girl, Dylan was ring bearer, and Richard walked Rebecca down the aisle crying. Later, Richard found Dylan looking at stars. "A year ago, I was still getting drugs out of my system. Now look at us. When I was in the orphanage, I used to dream you'd come burst through the doors like a superhero, and you actually did." 3 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, Richard woke to find both children in his bed, reading in comfortable silence. "Can we make pancakes?" Lily asked as they ate. Dylan said, "I have a presentation at school about courage. Can I tell our story?" "If you're comfortable with that." After breakfast, they went to the park where Dylan had been taken. Dylan stood at the playground. "This is where I was when you were on the phone." Richard knelt. "I'm so sorry I wasn't paying attention. You didn't let me down. Bad people took me and you found me. That's what matters." "Should we make a new memory here?" Lily asked. "A good memory." So they played. Richard pushed them on swings. They climbed. They chased each other. Other families watched, just another father and his kids. Laughing in the sunshine that night, Richard tucked them both in. Dylan asked to work at the foundation when he grew up. Richard's throat tightened. That would be amazing. His phone buzzed with texts from grateful families. He read them all. These breadcrumbs of healing scattered across the world. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't check on the kids obsessively. He didn't lie awake replaying nightmares. He simply slept. Because they were safe, they were healing, they were home. And that was enough, that was everything.